It's so good to see everybody, and we're John is ready with the technology side. Welcome to the very first ever, as always, typical for IMM. This has never been done before. Zoom podcast, and John or Teresa or Josh, do you guys want to kick this off formally?
I'll just say that I'm enormously excited to see the alums and can't wait to hear what you're talking about. So I'll mute and let John take it away.
Ooh, hi guys. It's really good to see you all. It really is, because you've become real people now. And that's always like the biggest thing. I'm always so surprised that you guys come back and you're doing it. Like you're actually doing what you set out to do, or at least some version of it. And I think what you have to say is going to be extremely helpful for especially this class, because they're graduating at the tail end of a pandemic. And so I think what you have to say and telling your story is going to be very helpful for us. So thank you for being here.
No problem.
Glad to be here. Yeah, definitely.
All right. I don't know if am I the host? I guess so. So I think, can we just start probably the easiest possible way? And can we get like the minute-long life story from each of you, just so we have some context? And I'm going to start with Matt, because he's in the upper left-hand corner. Hi, Matt.
So life story starting from like birth or from like graduation?
Start where it gets interesting. I think that's probably the best.
So after I graduated in 2010 from TCNJ, I went to the Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. It was a 2-year graduate program, and I went there just because I wanted to. It's very similar to what we did at TCNJ and IMM. I wanted to make video games. Ever since I was 12 when I first played The Legend of Zelda, I was like, I want to make my own kind of thing like this. So that's why I went there. And at that school, you can see as soon as you walk in the building, there was a 5-floor building, and each one was like, all the walls were lined with like memorabilia of, there's like giant figures of Spider-Man and Batman. Any piece of geek history, technology, it was all over the place. You can tell that the people there, they just live and breathe all this stuff. That's what they do. Everyone's really passionate about what they do. And aside from games, the other reasons people would attend were to either for film or for location-based entertainment. So that's like making the rides at Disneyland. But I'd say at least 40% of the people who went there wanted to make games. And so while I was there, the first semester was kind of like a boot camp, but the remaining 3 semesters were kind of 6-month project-based experiences where you would have a client who wanted some sort of project done. In my case, you got to choose kind of from a list of clients and projects, but I always went for the game projects. And so you would have a team of usually average of 6 people. Smallest I was on was 3. I heard some teams closer to 10, but usually less than 10. And you have an office, a room where all of you work. You have your core hours, and it aimed to kind of simulate, a real industry type project. So that was my first taste of that, which was a lot of fun. After I graduated, I came back to New Jersey. I had sort of a disillusioning internship where I thought I'd be doing a little bit more, or not an internship, just entry-level position at a startup. And I thought I'd be doing a lot more design, but it was kind of, was not that. So I ended up actually catching on with Warren and working for him for a little while. And I had known a little bit of how to program from when I was at TCNJ, but I basically learned web development working for him. And So yeah, Warren, do you want to talk about what we do?
All I can say is that Matt figured out how to hardwire FileMaker Pro as a backend to the web, and we learned a lot, and I think that's we were the tech support, we were the designers, we were everything, and it was wonderful working with Matt. And the database is still alive and going and used every day. So
And basically, yeah, it's a publisher database of product reviews for children's apps and toys and media. And then alongside that, in 2014, I came back to TCNJ and started teaching as an adjunct. I got my first taste teaching the games courses. Since then, I've been teaching 110 and really loving it. Taught a couple of game courses the past year, and but mostly 110. So I get a chance to see all of the most of the time freshmen. Give them, it's kind of like level 1 to IMM, kind of like this is the first level if IMM were a video game, and it's kind of like the tutorial section. So it's an important thing. Give them kind of a good vertical slice of everything the program has to offer, and yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
also, John, Matt likes Zelda.
Yeah.
So, and baseball.
Yep.
That's good.
Oh, am I next?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I was
right.
waiting.
Tell us your story where it starts to get interesting.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. It's really exciting to be here. I'm excited to see a couple of students from my digital media course. So shout out to Zane and John. So my story. Where do I begin with that? So I guess I came to TCNJ. I was a pre-med major, and quickly realized within the first 20 seconds that was not something I wanted to do. So I switched my major, picked up journalism and IMM my second semester, and then graduated in 2016. After graduation, I began working for CBS New York doing broadcast design. So everything from show opens to promotional materials for the different newscasts, and then subsequently launching the CBSN mobile app, which was awesome because I feel like I got a chance to combine everything that I learned at TCNJ into one job. So I was there until 2020, obviously with COVID. So right now I'm working at Discovery, and I'm doing product design for their app, Discovery Plus. So, and I think in between the my in-between stage between jobs, I also had a couple of contract positions at Paramount Plus. So it's been cool. It's been like a rolling, an ever-changing thing with this pandemic, but it's been pretty cool so far.
Awesome. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Ryan Lau.
Hey guys. So where are we starting from?
Where it gets interesting.
Where it gets interesting. I mean, I'll give you the abbreviated childhood because I feel like I'm an outlier where I knew I wanted to go into like media and animation since I was probably like 12 years old. I remember filling out like, if you remember in elementary school where it's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And by 5th grade, I was like, an animator at Pixar. Everyone's like, what? So I didn't exactly become that, but I did become, somewhat of a motion graphics artist, and animator, and something along those lines. So yeah, I just kind of took that passion throughout like me growing up, middle school, high school, always making short films with my friends, and like always trying to learn new things. And the first chance I had to open After Effects in high school, I was like, I'm learning this immediately. I just kind of like dove into the YouTube swirl of tutorials, and this was like 2009, so didn't have as much out there as there is now, but there was definitely enough to still be able to learn. And then, yeah, I took that obviously to IMM, where I met some awesome friends and started doing short filmmaking. We entered Campus Movie Fest 4 years in a row, and we had the immense opportunity to go to the Hollywood national event where we kind of cornered the VFX and animation kind of categories. It was like our thing, and we really enjoyed doing it. And we met so many awesome people participating in something like that, like a film festival. And then other than that, now I work for MWWPR based out of New York City. It's a PR digital ad agency, and we do a variety of different things. I'm on a content team where I produce mainly social media content for different clients, big ones including Nikon. I do a lot of their social media product work and promotions and highlighting different features of things like that. Do a lot of event stuff. We do some celebrity work with different clients. So it's really awesome because it's a very vast sort of job where I can do so many different types of media, from photography to video to animation and design. I'm not sort of pigeonholed at any time. So it's nice. And that's what I've been doing for almost 4 years now.
Thank you guys very much. I probably only have like two other questions before we open this up, but I kind of want to know your journey. What was it like starting Thesis, between the time between starting Thesis, I'll say the second semester or the first, actually it doesn't matter, to the first day on the job? What was that period like? And I guess I'll start with Matt again. We'll do the same order, at least this
Okay.
round.
So yeah, my thesis project, so 2009 to 2010, that was, yeah, wow, that's crazy, because that was, I remember I in like 2008 seeing the what was going to be the Kinect being used to basically from Microsoft Flight Simulator. They had like a little helmet where if you tilted your head, then your perspective in the camera for the game would shift. And I was like, that would be really cool, because then you have a controller that's, rather than buttons, it's just more natural. So I wanted to study immersion and how technology can affect that in a game. So I ended up actually, but I realized, like, well, I need to learn to program, because back then, I don't think there was as much programming in IMM, so you could get along pretty far without really having to do it. So I spent the winter break of that in between semesters reading the book Learning Processing, and that was kind of like my first real, when something clicked. And so for those of you who don't know, processing was kind of the predecessor to P5.js. That's where I learned just basic, concepts, object-oriented concepts and stuff like that. And ended up building sort of a pretty, a rudimentary prototype. Did some testing and learned that. I used the camera face recognition libraries and processing, but it was kind of clunky. And so when doing the play testing, noticing that players would spend too much time actually trying to focus on getting the tech to recognize them, and that detracted from their immersion. So that was more just a limitation of the tech, but it was a really good exercise. And for me, the most fun part was just sitting in the apartments with some of my suite mates who were in computer science and learning programming, additional stuff from them. So then from there to maybe this first day on, trying to think like which job I should consider, because I didn't really do any programming in my first job out of grad school, but coming back to work with Warren, there was I remember President's Day 2014, where the server crashed because there was an ice storm, and Warren was in New York at Toy Fair. And so he's like, Matt, I need you to fix the server. And I was like, but I don't know anything about server maintenance. I had been doing video editing and a little bit of FileMaker at that point. So I ended up spending like 2 days trying to learn and fix the server. And I was able to do that with some help from tech support. So after that, and during that time, it had been this holy grail to figure out how to publish his database online. And that he was away on another trip, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna teach myself PHP and publish this thing. And so having that little bit of experience when I taught myself back at TCNJ, I kind of just tried to do the same thing. I didn't have a book this time, so I just kind of had to Google things. But yeah, I had that experience where I found the right kind of tutorial and it clicked. And from there, it was just like iteratively adding new features and learn every time I would learn every day. I felt like I would learn something new, and be able to apply that to the actual website. And so it just over the years, I would, learn more and more, and the product would get better. So that was kind of fun. That was a very gratifying experience to teach myself and have it on the fly kind of make the job go better.
Thank you, Matt. We are going to expand on all of these because I'm already like, my mind is, so much I want to, but this is not about me today. This is about you three, but we are going to we're going to come back to some of what we're going to unpack some of that for sure. Cool. Sorraya, life between oh my gosh, I'm a senior thesis already to, oh my gosh, I have to get to my first job walking through that door. What does that feel like? What did it mean for you?
That, my process actually went very quickly, because I feel like for probably a lot of people, your fall thesis semester is mostly very conceptual, it's very theoretical, and it's kind of like thesis hits you during the second semester, probably like right in the middle. That's when you stop sleeping as well, and you start realizing that, oh my God, this huge project is due in like 3 weeks. So that was me. I was that type of student who, fall semester, I was like, it's not enough pressure. So I waited until the spring to really start working at it, but it all worked out. So my thesis project was a VR film that I built entirely in Cinema 4D and Maya, and then I used I kind of user tested a couple of different engines. I ended up going with Unreal, but at the time I was trying to mess around with Unity to try to host it through the Oculus, and it worked out. I mean, a lot of sleepless nights, but we got there to the final showcase. Everything worked out surprisingly, and I was able to use that project to kind of get my foot in the door at CBS. So that was really cool. It was something that they were kind of on the precipice of wanting to incorporate more 3D. It was around the time where, I don't know if anybody ever noticed, but there was like a phase where all the networks were trying to incorporate visual virtual reality into their newscast. So I was kind of like prime pickings for at the right time to kind of help facilitate that. Obviously it was a phase. They didn't really, I don't think they really thought that through about live keying and everything and tracking, but my thesis project helped a lot. For a while, it was probably like the project that I was most proud of. So I was showing it to a whole bunch of employers. And I guess, within that little time, it wasn't necessarily too easy, just because I know everybody wants that job before they graduate so they can put it on their cap, or they can like show it to their parents like, hey, I got a job, I graduated. That didn't necessarily happen for me. I made a couple of contacts. I started networking maybe like my second semester or my first semester of senior year, and had a couple of bites, nothing really too like concrete. So when I graduated, I ended up going back to work at the movie theater that I was originally from for maybe about 3 weeks to a month. And then that's when I got a call from CBS saying like, we would like you to come work for us. So, and it was all because of my thesis project, to be completely honest. I'm sorry if you can see my cats playing in the background. This is their playtime right now. Yeah, so it was kind of like it went very slow and then everything went very quickly, but I stayed, I guess, loose enough to roll with the punches and kind of just take whatever the universe gave me. So it was cool. It all worked out. It's not scary.
Great. So Josh's, I'm sorry, Ryan's MacBook just crashed, so he's going to join us shortly. I wanted to see, so we now know your background story, and I think your story is similar to a lot of what other seniors right now are feeling. We've been doing one-on-ones, 20 minutes, in some points, like even hour-long conversations or 2-hour-long conversations with seniors. And what we're hearing again and again and again is, this anxiety about finding that first job. And it is hard, right? It's normal. I think it's normal to feel that way. And even when you finally get that job, that's like a whole other thing. And then like the first day on the job and then learning that. So it's kind of a crazy couple of months, but I think it could be very exciting. And well, so I like hearing your stories. I think what I want to do, I want to pivot a little bit and first see if Warren or Teresa have any questions for you guys. And we do want to open it up for students because we wanted this to be more of a conversation. So Warren and Teresa, do you have anything you want to ask Matt or Sorraya? And again, Ryan will be here soon.
I'm back. Sorry.
You're back.
Great.
Let me pin you on my video. So while I'm finding you, Josh, what was life like senior thesis through the first day on the job? What did that feel like?
It's a question for me
there?
now.
That's for Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So my thesis had really nothing to do with like the career path that I was going to choose. Earlier on in, I guess, the fall, when we're sort of relatively starting to decide what we were going to do, I was debating between doing, I was going to be going to video production, video marketing, and or animation. And I was debating if I should do some sort of film or some sort of like spec commercial or something like that. And I had already been doing quite a bit of that at the time. Me and another alum, Chris Lundy, had been working for the TCNJ marketing department, kind of reinvigorating their video production and doing quite a bit for the overall school marketing. We did a variety of like different event capture videos and overall the admissions video, which is still up on the site, which is really awesome. So quite a bit. So I had been kind of already had like a ton of portfolio work because of that in terms of the marketing side of things. I also had been doing CMF for so long, so I had a variety of films in my portfolio. So in terms of like doing portfolio work, I was kind of relatively set. I mean, there were still things I wanted to do, but I felt really good about it. So when I was considering thesis projects, on the other side, as a hobby, I had been getting really into smart home automation and technology and Internet of Things for quite a while, like probably since freshman, sophomore year. And it was like really a fun like outlet that I had that was completely different than all the film and sort of career-based stuff I was doing. And I really enjoyed it. So ultimately, I decided that for my thesis, I wanted to do something in that category because I felt the thesis was like the last time that I would have so much time in my life to like devote to a project that was completely unrelated to my sort of career path. So that's what I did. So my thesis project was taking open source home automation software that linked a bunch of different devices and things that don't normally work together and building that up. And then I customized it with automation that let me show kind of some of my films and come up with like lighting and technology patterns that match those films when they are automatically triggered. Kind of to create like a moody atmosphere that matched the film. And there's different technologies that already do that, but I was sort of like putting my own spin on it. And I really enjoyed it. And I think the challenge was like coming up with something creative using all the different gadgets and gear I had acquired. And then also getting it to run in the IMM building. I had to like whitelist like every Wi-Fi device I had because of all the networking limitations and stuff and security. But it was fun and it turned out well. And I produced a video that was about that whole project. I have somewhere. It was like basically a case study on what I had built and showed that in a bunch of my other films. And it was great. And then now I kind of use it as a fun fact at work that I kind of have this sort of side hobby where I do really invest into technology and emerging tech. And it's definitely come in handy sometimes where we're working on brainstorms and stuff for different clients. And there's a technology component and I can say like, oh, I have quite a bit of experience in this category. How can I help out? How can I offer ideas or advice? And I've showed that, the home automation video I did for thesis quite a bit. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thesis story in a nutshell.
That's amazing. Before we allow students to chime in, because we have a lot of them, we have 48 students here, I believe. Warren and Teresa, do you have any questions for this group?
I remember I was Ryan's thesis teacher that year, and he had come in and had said, "Hey, you want to see my disco mode in my dorm room?" He held up his iPhone, and I said, "Huh?" And he turned on he had a couple things. Now he's doing this remotely, and his roommate was probably trying to sleep. I don't know if it was Chris or who it was, but
Yeah.
he basically had automated his little disco ball and some lights, and could control it from his phone. And I'm like, why are you not doing this for your thesis? You know, it's so cool that the home automation thing. And he had hacked in an Amazon Echo speaker and found all this open source stuff. And I'm like, that's going to be really hot, So anyway, I think the thing from all these guys is that to be in tune with your intrinsic motivation, the things that really interest you. The best projects are things that you really are just like, I would do this without getting paid, or and I saw that in that case.
Yeah, definitely echoing that. Like, choosing something that I kind of was already doing and continue to want to do, it made me want to make it great. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like a homework assignment. It didn't feel like this burden. It felt like I want to put so many hours into this because like it's something I really love doing, and I want to see the outcome be great. So that's definitely like a tip I would say as you sort of try to either wrap up or think about thesis is pick something that that you want to put all your energy into and all of your kind of sort of creative passion, because you're going to want to do it. It's not going to feel like a burden.
And John, you asked me to ask a question as well. And I'll just say that I think at this moment in thesis, there's a sort of a moment of, I don't want to call it panic, but, a kind of a challenge for the current seniors in terms of both confronting with the challenges that they've set up for themselves and what will be next. So what I'm hoping that you all can do is to tell them stories that will help them feel more confident that they can do it, that they will do it, and that it's, that it will happen. So I'll just put it that way. And I know that Dylan has prepared a number of questions for you. So I'm hoping that maybe Dylan could get a chance to ask some of his questions as well. So I'll mute and invite Dylan to ask you a question.
Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, I guess I have a whole list of questions. I don't know where to start. I guess I could kick it off with, do they expect any certain skill sets when fresh out of college? Like, do you need to know certain software? Is there a typical work etiquette or anything? Do they train you, or do they expect you to know and do everything from the get-go?
I'll take that one. So a little bit of both. They obviously understand that you're freshly out of college. So there is kind of a level of, okay, this person's young and they will need to be trained. But they do expect, like, it depends on like what job you're actually going for. So if I'm going for a designer job, obviously I would have to have a working knowledge of Photoshop and After Effects and like maybe 3D. Do they expect you to be the best in the room straight out of college? No, but you have to know enough to be coached, I would say. So that kind of creates a little bit of a challenge, because I know there's only so far the classroom can go, right? So there's so many hours in a day, and it honestly really takes some of those hours to teach yourself on your own, I think, to get like a leg up in when you're first out of college, because there are things that came into play, or like I was asked to do, that I actually taught myself. So I was very thankful that I took that extra time. And again, it kind of goes back to what Ryan was saying, like you pick something that doesn't feel like work. So for me, like spending 10 hours outside of the classroom teaching myself 3D didn't feel like work. That was playtime. And it just makes me sound really boring when people ask me my hobbies and I say, oh, animation. Like, so yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you find like that sweet spot where it's like, okay, I know enough that if they ask me a basic how to do something, I know how to do it. But if it's something more complex, they will teach you. It's fine. I don't know if they're still fine. Okay.
I could add that, yeah, it definitely depends on kind of what area you're looking on getting into. Just in my experience with games, it was definitely pretty clear that if you had like hard skills in either programming or animation, you were in demand. So the people who were, really proficient at one of those areas right out of school um, stood the best chance to get the jobs. So if it's anything like games you're looking on getting into, then those are the areas I'd look to specialize in. If that's what you like doing. It's not the only jobs in games, but that's probably the fastest way to get a job.
Yeah, pretty much anything I would cover was touched on. It really just depends on the job. You can tell kind of what the requirements are in the job description. Like the job description for my job, it said, here's what you'd be making. It's social media, it's video editing, it's some shooting involved. And then here are some of like the software we require you to know: Adobe Premiere, Photoshop, After Effects. Like this is what we prefer. And then it'll even say like, maybe a lot of the jobs look at, it says Cinema 4D, like recommended but not required. So it depends on the job. And then it all, once you put your portfolio together and include that with your resume and everything when you're applying to things, people that are hiring will see that as what your potential is. And then if there's enough there that they can mold into what the job requires. I mean, I'm always learning on the job. So, I had a great grasp on editing and After Effects and animation and stuff and like things like that. And so I obviously proved that I could pretty much do whatever I needed to do in that position. But there's always times where, like this weekend, we had to come up with like a live stream solution for influencers for Whole Foods Market. And I had never really done live stream before, but I had sort of the intuition and the relative tech familiarity and experience to be able to say like, oh yeah, I think if you just like go through YouTube or do this or connect a camera with an HDMI, like that's how we can do this. And then you test it and it works. And then that's what you pitch as the solution. So there's always finding solutions, I think. I mean, again, it depends on the job, but at least in my position where I'm one of only 3 video producers and content creators, and we're serving in a whole company, there's a lot of times where I'm tasked like, hey, Ryan, do you think we could do this, this, and this? And I'm like, well, I've never done it, but I can probably teach myself how to do it. And that's happened many, many, many times. So I think as long as you show a good, solid understanding of kind of the basics, or like a good core understanding of what the job that you want is, and then showing that you have this sort of intuition to be able to grow and expand upon that, then that's really what people are looking for.
All right, thank you. I guess branching off from that in terms of portfolio, how do you guys build, or how did you go about building your portfolios or resumes?
I'm super, so I host my portfolio on Behance, just because I am super indecisive when it comes to a layout and like what I want. So it was kind of the interim solution for just getting something by the time I graduated. And I ended up actually just sticking with it. Just because, I mean, there was really no need. I kind of figured after going on my first couple of job interviews, you don't necessarily need like a fully licensed domain and everything, and like a fully custom site, at least for my industry. As long as you show your skills, they don't really nitpick too much. So and Behance is also free. So that was like another thing. When I first graduated, I needed a free solution because Squarespace wasn't really in the cards right now. So just having some sort of platform to showcase your projects, I think is absolutely necessary when you first graduate, and still now. But it doesn't necessarily have to be like a super flashy site. And I would definitely it's something to build on. So maybe eventually I will have an actual site that I'm happy with. But for now, it is definitely working out. I see a lot of people also utilize Instagram and social media to show the case their work, which is valid. I've seen employers pull up, your work, like your professional Instagram, and just kind of scroll through just to see. But I see somebody just posted about Adobe Portfolio. So that's a new thing that I've been looking into. It's also like a free extension on like kind of just building on the Behance platform. So yeah.
I believe Alexis also had a question. Maybe we can circle back to this as well. Is that okay? Unless one of you has, they're just dying to like, oh, let me tell you all about the portfolio. Matt or Ryan, do either of you, do you just need?
I was just gonna say, don't, I wouldn't overthink it. Mine was a WordPress site that had ads all over it, and I happened to buy myname.com and link it, but yeah.
But you also had a pretty awesome reel. Like
Yeah,
the work
yeah.
spoke for
If you're
itself.
going into video production or animation, I would say reel is basically required. And that was just like a YouTube video, like a 2-minute montage of everything I had done. So that's really what my main thing was a demo reel.
Yeah.
I had a couple things to add. Just coming out of school, I remember I didn't have much of a presence at all. But the first thing I did was set up, I think it was just on like PB Works, PB Wiki. It was just a wiki, but I used that to pretty quickly just upload my game design documentation. And I'd also done some sound effects and electronic music on the game projects. That was pretty much all I had then. But then once I started actually doing some web development with Warren, I actually do have a domain now. I think he shared that before. But one thing that I learned when I was in school was that your resume, if it can kind of reflect kind of what you want to be, like if you want to be a web developer, you should have a website, and it should. What I've tried to do is use it to show like, yeah, I built my own website rather than using WordPress, but that's because that's what I do. Likewise, like if you're going to go into graphic design, if your resume, it shouldn't be like just a boring piece of paper. It should be something visually interesting. So if whatever you are applying to become is something that you can kind of show off using your resume or your portfolio, then it's good to do that.
Thank you, Matt. That's great advice. Alexis, I saw you had a hand raised.
Hello, I'm Alexis. So my question to actually all three of you would be, what were some of the roadblocks you experienced while creating your senior thesis, and how did you get over those?
For me, I remember it was in the fall semester. The research semester was kind of nothing but roadblocks. It was really just like I had a vague idea and was trying. I went down a bunch of dead end roads. Like I went to Radio Shack a bunch of times, playing around with Arduinos, before I realized that wasn't really going to be a viable option for what I wanted to do, at least in that time frame. I remember getting a whole bunch of books on physical computing and different types of, I had like several different possible ways I could go. And so just deciding and committing to a route was kind of the first roadblock. Things kind of clicked when I decided on the technology. I was like, well, I'm familiar with processing, so let me try that. And oh, I like games, so let me make a game. And so rather than trying to teach myself something totally new with physical computing, just by picking something that I'd be able to do in a semester's time, that opened up a few doors. But even in the implementation semester, I was still learning as I went. So a lot of it was just outputting graphics. And I remember I learned a lot just teaching myself, but there was every time I passed the next barrier, there would be something else. And then it was helpful. I just happened to be rooming with a couple of CS students. So I was able to ask them questions like, hey, what's the best way to like increment this array or something like that. And if I didn't have a bunch of them just nearby. What I've similarly learned to do since then is whenever you have a question like that, just Google it, and there's usually, you can find an answer. But yeah, it was constant, like even after you had little successes, there was always the next challenge. And whenever you come to the point where you just don't know what to do, I found if you just seek out answers either through people you know or just the internet, there usually is something if you know how to phrase your question properly.
Great. All
Oh,
right.
okay.
Wait. Wait.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna add, because I waited so much to the last minute that I encountered most of my problems in the last minute. Don't do that, by the way. But you should never try to learn a new skill within like the last 2 weeks before the showcase. So in my case, I knew 3D. That wasn't the problem. It was trying to get it to work in Unity and Unreal was the thing that I had to learn. And I unfortunately put that off until the night before the showcase to kind of like really sit down and like user test everything. So it was mostly me in the IMM building just Googling how to do this. Like, so Google will definitely save you at the end of the day. But I guess my helpful tidbit is, if you know that there is an aspect of your project that you aren't quite familiar with, do that first and then do all the easy stuff afterwards, just so you can kind of minimize how many roadblocks you encounter at the very end.
I think I'm hearing a common theme in all of these discussions. So I think our superpower as people who studied IMM is that we have knowledge in a lot of different areas, and we're able to quickly pivot, learn, and connect those areas like much more quickly than maybe some other people in other professions. And I know, like for my own work, I work with a lot of different kinds of clients. In fact, I like to call my freelance work like speed dating different industries. And so you're able to start connecting all these industries. And so it's really helpful to hear the fact that you're so resourceful and that you have a base that will help you, like you'll know where to look, whether it's Google or whether it's friends in the dorm room, or where to even find information and how to learn. So I'm really happy you're all saying these things. I want to ask next, who else has a question? Just shout out, because from my screen, I can't see who's raising hands all the time. So if somebody hasn't raised a hand, please just shout out.
I have a sort of unrelated question for those of you who went to grad school. Like, why did you choose to go to grad school, and what were you hoping to get out of it?
So for me, honestly, probably the biggest reason I went was because at the time my dad thought I really should, because he had just finished doing his master's, like later on in his life, and didn't want that same thing to happen to me. So I figured, getting a master's degree is a nice credential to have. It's what allows me to come back and teach here. But also, even just aside from what I learned in the classroom, it was a really cool life experience, just living in a different city and meeting different people, working on projects. So I would recommend, just from a life experience perspective, I thought it was worth it. Even counting the student loans, it was definitely worth it. And yeah, just if I hadn't gone, there's so much I wouldn't have now. Just whether it's a perspective of just the project management, or even like I don't know if Warren was talking about this before, but as a side hobby, I'm working on a novel, and just learning about, we had lectures on stuff like the hero's journey and different ways to present a narrative. and stuff like that has helped me with that kind of work. So I just found it was really valuable, just all across the board. It's not the only way to go, but I thought it was a good way.
So I'm actually in grad school now. I made the decision last year to go back. And it honestly, it wasn't like some super like quarter life crisis thing where it was just honestly in a conversation I was having with my mom, and she was just like, you graduated, you're doing motion graphics, you're doing like animation, but she was like, you remember when you wanted to be like a visual effects artist? And like I used to be that kid. I was like, I want to work on Marvel films and I want to be a compositor. And then I kind of graduated and then got into television. It wasn't quite, the leap I wanted to take to film, but I was adjacent. And I was kind of just sitting like, oh yeah, like I remember when I wanted to do that. And she was like, well, why don't you go? Like you're kind of like at the point where you understand the working world and you're pretty comfortable at now to do. So, take this opportunity to go back like part-time. I think getting a master's degree was something that she always wanted to do and never really got a chance to do it. So, I don't know. I applied just to kind of appease her, and then I got in. So I was like, I guess I have to go. But now I'm getting my Master's of Fine Art at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and I'm doing 3D animation and visual effects. So it was a way, I guess, to catapult me to another field. It's very hard to break into the visual effects world, and it seems like you have to have either years and years of experience and be super good and know that you wanted to do this from the time that you popped out, or you need to go to grad school and have that network behind you and those types of high level projects to work on. So I'm in the midst of
do you guys so there are other ways to learn new skills in this industry. We have to continue learning, otherwise our skills expire pretty quickly, unlike many other occupations like accounting or something like that, where you're good for a while. Are any of you taking online courses? And there's been an explosion of those. Do you guys meet in like right now, where I'm doing a lot of Zoom groups with people from around the world, like every Saturday? Like, how else are you learning new things? Is it just grad school, or are you doing all kinds of other new things, especially with COVID? Like, maybe I didn't phrase it. I didn't phrase that question properly. But yeah, how do you guys keep current? I think that's what I'm getting at.
I'm not taking any like formal online courses or anything, but I've found just as long as you're working on a project, you're always going to have a problem to solve. And so just going online and doing a search, if it's something with programming, I always find myself directed to like Stack Overflow. And there are people who just go on these forums and answer questions that get upvoted and downvoted, so you can see like multiple solutions. You can see which ones are more popular. And even just from teaching 110, which is pretty much the Adobe Creative Suite, I always try to make sure I include links to the Adobe online tutorials, because a lot of my students have even said that having these resources, I have PDFs of the slides that I send out with each week. And so the links to those are in there. They said that those are very valuable because that gives the students a chance to further their learning after class. So I try to kind of tailor it to, I assume that like everyone's starting from level 0, which isn't going to be the case with everyone. I do that because there are some people who are starting from level 0. I don't want to go over their heads, but so if there's someone who is more intermediate, they get the chance to go online and they see, oh, here's a whole bunch of advanced tutorials. Here's a specific technique that I can teach myself that's kind of going above and beyond. So yeah, just whatever you're in, finding a good place online. There's usually some place that has resources for you.
Thank you. All right. If anyone has anything else to add, that's great. But is there any other questions?
I can speak to that if you want.
All right.
Yeah. So I know we talked a little bit about this yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of speak to my networking spree of 2020. But I stumbled upon, well, I guess speaking at first about like learning, like I never really considered grad school just because I was feeling confident in my job and the ways I could like learn online using Google or YouTube tutorials or anything I need to learn I could probably find. So I haven't really considered grad school yet. I would consider probably taking some sort of like extra class potentially on animation or VFX at some point, but that's just it hasn't happened yet. But during the quarantine, I was like definitely trying to find some sort of community that I could participate in and learn from other people. I had considered going to a trade show in Vegas called NAB. It's like a broadcasters and film conference, and I was super excited to go. And then it got canceled. And I was like really bummed because I thought it would be like a great networking opportunity. And then I stumbled upon on Instagram, there was this creator. She goes by the artist name of Cash Bunny, Cache, like After Effects Cash. And she's an After Effects artist. She does VFX, she does animation, she does a lot of awesome like short form content on Instagram. And she built up like a whole kind of slew of work doing that, and now partners with brands like Microsoft, Adobe, Red Bull, and a bunch of other things and companies, and works directly with them. So it's sort of like the influencer route, I guess. But I looked up to her and other artists on Instagram, and never really felt like I had the ability to like reach out to those types of people because of their like social status, I guess. But this creator, she put out a Zoom link. She was like, I'm really bored at home as a creator. Like I made an open Zoom that anyone can join 24/7 and just co-work and have like a virtual space. And the audio, like the microphones are off, but you can text in the chat and there's music playing in the background. It's sort of like a virtual coffee shop, virtual computer lab that you can come and hang out and meet other creators. And it took off. Like I joined like the first or second day because I was like, oh, this is convenient. Like this is awesome. And I met her, I met all these other people from around the world, and it's grown and grown and grown. And now I've been like almost on nonstop since probably last May, and have met people from over like 60 countries. Like we actually have a log of like who's visited, and there's so many people in animation and video and graphic design, people that are still in college, people that are way in the industry already. And I met so many people from that. So that's called Edit Party. Like we sort of named it that, and we actually have a website for it now. I could type in the chat, and anyone can join. There's no membership, there's no nothing. It's just like a community of people that just come and hang out and learn and meet each other and edit together. So that's awesome. And the other thing that I'll mention is a new social networking app. It's called Clubhouse. And if you haven't heard of it, it's a drop-in audio app, which they call it, where there's a bunch of different rooms with different topics that you can come in, and there's a stage of people talking in an audience. You can go up to the stage and ask questions of the moderators. And some rooms are with 10 people and just like a free for all if anyone can come in. Some are 2,000 people and there's like 2 moderators, and they're doing Q&A with people coming up or just having a conversation like podcast style. And it's kind of taken off in the industry. I call it LinkedIn meets Discord, where there's actually, it's not just a bunch of like kind of people that live on the internet. It's actually like there's celebrities on there, there's influencers, there's the Shark Tank sharks are on there doing Q&A about entrepreneurship. There's Elon Musk was on there talking about rockets and Mars. And in some, like even Barbara Corcoran, the shark, was having people come up and ask questions about entrepreneurship. So like it's this crazy new experience that a lot of people are taking advantage of during quarantine. It's right now, it's invite only. It's on iPhones and it's in beta. I have a few invites. People are interested, like 5 or 6 invites. But
how much are you charging per invite?
I know people are charging for
My
them.
list serve is going nuts.
Yeah, people are charging like $20 an invite on eBay or something. I'm like, this is stupid. I get 5 more every time I invite other people. So that's something that I've found really interesting, because I met photographers and I met videographers and editors, and there's a group I talk about Premiere Pro bugs and glitches, which is a bunch of other people, and I've learned like tips and tricks from people that have figured things out. And it's just, you stumble in and you talk to people, and it's kind of awesome. And there's some Wild West aspects of it too, but you find kind of like what pockets of people that you can value from. But I think at a time like this, where you're looking for networking experiences and making connections with people in the industry, I think it's like a awesome new thing that just sort of popped up.
I mean, that's honestly, it's one of the biggest resources. It's what differentiates this class with your class, because this didn't exist when you were in thesis, and had it existed and you took full advantage of it, your lives could have been very different. And so like a lot of the students right now are living in a very unique time where you literally have you have access to almost everyone in the world. Everyone's on an equal playing field in some way. And that just didn't happen like 5 years ago. It just couldn't do it. So the senior class right now has an advantage in some ways and some disadvantages, of course. But yeah, please take advantage of that. Absolutely. We have another student question. Now, how are we doing on time? We never really discussed. Are we doing this till 5 p.m.? Is this like a till dinner time thing, or?
I was just thinking that I always give people a bathroom break, and everyone's like probably would love to get up and stretch, but some things are more important than Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Well, I did tell our speakers that we would stop after an hour, so maybe we should slowly start to wrap up and appreciate their time also.
True.
So somebody in the audience, on my view, I'm going to go back to gallery view, needs to ask a question. You've been wanting to ask the question. You're just being too shy about it. What do you need to know?
I did have a question. I did have one last question at least. Obviously, securing a job after graduation is really important. Getting that source of income is necessary. But I was curious if any of you had ever considered doing indie work at some point. And if so, what made you decide to stick with the job that you're currently at, or like what deterred you, if anything?
I'm trying to think. So I definitely, I've had opportunities where I got like contract positions to kind of work on indie projects, and honestly, like I didn't see anything wrong with it. So I feel like when I first graduated, I wasn't too excited to just jump into a full-time job and kind of just be there for the rest of my life. So I wanted to shop around, and that's why I think contract and freelance positions are really beneficial, because you can have so many of them at the same time. You don't have to work every day. So if you're kind of like, well, I do need to make money after graduation, but I also kind of want to have fun because this is a really fun field, I definitely recommend going for contract positions that give you enough free time to still work on those indie projects. So you're still getting the money you need, but you're still having fun. And it's very rare that they will make you work a 40-hour week at a contract job. So I think that's a nice happy medium until you kind of find that that fit for you. So definitely think about that, because don't be too quick to just jump into like a big corporation just because you need to have the money and you need to have like the benefits. I mean, take advantage if you are like lucky enough to still be on your like parents' benefits. Definitely take advantage of that until I think it's like 25 or 26. But you know, if you don't have that that privilege, having certain contract positions do afford you those benefits, a paycheck, and still gives you like enough time to do fun things.
I second that, just because do you really want to see the same 4 or 5 people every day for the next 40 years? Contract positions allow you to see a lot more of the world. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I can add to that too. I've been taking on quite a few like freelance projects. I guess I don't really call them indie projects, just sort of like extra projects outside of my full-time job. But a lot of it's just come from some friends I've met. Like a friend runs a production company and he needs motion graphics all the time. So he pings me for small projects like that. I've done, some of my coworkers have some sort of side hustles and they recommend me for certain things. So I'll do like a video edit. And that'll be a good side project. I just did one last week where it was like a stop action animation. It was like product shoot, and I came to New York to do that, and now I'm editing that now. So yeah, things have sort of popped up. I even do like photo shoots with people, like headshots or just sort of events, things like that. It just depends on what comes to me. I don't really like market it. I don't really put it out that I'm actively looking for extra work. It just sort of comes to me. But that's a result of building my network and always being open to new connections. And I usually say yes to projects when they come my way, and that's sort of worked out for me. So but yeah, it's good extra cash, and it's good experience too. One, managing my own sort of business, because I've learned like one, how to price myself in sort of the freelance market. If I decide to go full time with doing freelance, I know like what my value is. And two, it's like there's certain things I now learn doing contract jobs that I don't normally learn on during my full-time job. Certain skills or animation techniques or video techniques or even like headshots and modeling, like things I haven't normally done full time. So it's always a good way to like expand my experience while actually making money too.
I second that one too. All right. I wonder if we should pivot and to wrap things up, not by asking another question, but if anybody has any comments. I think I'd like to leave it there. So if students or faculty have any comments, I think that might be a good way to wrap this up.
John, I've been taking notes as from the questions and from this general thing, and I came up with 3 bullets. And one is that IMMers learn how to learn. And I think you've sort of seen that in action, that you don't graduate with a package of knowledge and it's going to fit the job. It's you graduate with an attitude that I can figure this out, and I know how to go and search and find the answers, and Matt figured out PHP, and you just do it. Another is to leverage the pandemic to your advantage. And right now, today, Toy Fair 2021 is going on virtually, and you can all go. Last year, you would have to get in a bus and get a press pass and do all these things. But right now, there's all these things that have gone online that you can actually attend, and you can jump into the edit party and things like that. So definitely use the pandemic situation to your advantage. And then the last thing is kind of came to me because I have 3 degrees from 3 universities, but to build your education around you and not the other way around. So some people say, I got to get a master's and a PhD and whatever, and kind of pour your life into that template. And that's a good recipe for an unhappy person. It's better to you'll know it when you get to it, and don't stress out the fact I don't know what I'm going to do next, because you'll know when it's right. And it might be that, like Rhea, it's time to get a master's in fine arts. It's a ticket. That's what they are. These degrees are tickets. And you'll know when it's right. But definitely keep the graduate programs and the doctoral programs in the back of your head for when the time is right. Those are my 3 bullet points.
Good bullet points, Warren. I like those ones. That's really good. Anybody else? Students, faculty have any?
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your experiences, because I feel like what you guys all said about like learning as you go, like especially when you get into the job force, like I forget who asked the question. I think it might have been Dylan, where it was like, oh, do you have to like know how to do everything? I feel like, and especially with what Warren was saying about the attitude, I feel like throughout the 4 years, when I first came into college, I really liked video editing, but I didn't know anything about it. And then now I'm like, everything that I've learned some stuff through other students, and I've learned a lot of stuff through like YouTube tutorials. And it's good to know that like, it still rings true even outside of school, that like you can use this in the practical world. And like, I'm going to definitely be relying more on tutorials, especially afterwards. And I feel like it's just comforting to know that like knowledge is like using Google is still like a great tactic in the workforce to like solve issues and come up with ideas, because I do it now and I like rely on that a lot.
If no one else has a comment, I would like to make a comment. So this is a really like awesome time. I know that like the world is closed, and that seems like it's not the end of the world. Like this is honestly, and I know this because in the past year, I've gotten laid off at a new job. So I've been kind of where you are, where you need to market yourself to potential employers. And this is a great time because I think John said this before, everybody's at home. Nobody has anything to do. So everybody's checking their LinkedIn. So I'm always a really big proponent of just messaging people. Doesn't matter their status. I DM'd the VP of Vox and she got back to me and we had a great conversation and just kind of build your network that way. So really take advantage of the fact that nobody has anything to do and they're just sitting on the computer. So don't be scared to kind of browse. I literally will browse LinkedIn and just sit there and like send cold emails to people and like introduce myself, talk about my experience, ask if they have anything that they can offer me as far as advice. And 9 times out of 10, like they're very responsive now and like they'll set up a Zoom call and you can kind of just pick their brain and build that network that you're looking for. And I will say that I know like this time seems really scary and like it seems like it's super competitive. And yes, to some extent, but companies are very eager to kind of rebuild themselves over the past year. So they're constantly looking for, especially contract jobs. There are so many contract jobs out there that can, honestly, I think the biggest turnaround I had to wait between contract jobs between my 6 months of being unemployed was a week. And like, it's so easy to just kind of pick that up. If you realize, okay, like I have a 4-week contract, it's the last week, let me start looking for my next one. It's very easy to get one. I will say that it's probably a little bit harder to find a full-time job now, just because companies aren't quite sure, you know, how long they need to hold out for, but for contract positions and being at home, amazing. Definitely go for that.
Quick
And I think
question
that's
on that. Oh, I
no,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
have a quick question on that. Where would we where's like the best place to find said contract jobs, like websites and such?
So I have, I would definitely say like Indeed, LinkedIn, Behance has job listings, like certain professional networking sites have a lot of them. But I also have a spreadsheet of just companies that I've come across in the past. I keep their website like in this Google spreadsheet. And every once in a while, I will peruse it and see what they have on their actual website. So think about the type of content that you consume. Like I've always had Discovery on my back burner since I graduated and just periodically check in to when they're hiring. And you know, that's how I kind of came across this position that I'm in now. But I also, yeah, I recommend building like a little database or like a little spreadsheet for yourself with just companies that you're interested in and just kind of keep tabs on them. Make connects and then keep tabs on them.
All right. Wow. Teresa or Josh, or would anybody like to make closing remarks?
I can jump in and just say how just incredibly proud I am of our alumni and just, you know, to have, you know, seen you and worked with most of you throughout your time and to see you now, it's extraordinary to realize the value of what we do in IMM and to see that reflected back is just, there's nothing better. So I think, I hope that the current seniors also feel the same way, that's in your future as well. And, you know, to keep your sights on the long game and, you know, to realize that the alumni are there, who they care, you know, they've obviously taken some valuable time out of their day to help you. And so it's just very heartwarming. So I really just want to express my gratitude to Rhea and to Matt and to Ryan for being here and for sharing your expertise, and especially for helping us all feel that, you know, there is definitely a lot of life to be lived after IMM and that it's an enriching and valuable life to have. And so it was really moving to hear all of that this morning.
I can't top that, so I'll just say thank you to everybody for being here, and always nice to hear from alums. And I think it's a really hard time right now. I've been thinking as I've been talking to students as well, like the uncertainty is really can be really paralyzing. And I think it's important to show yourself a little bit of grace and focus on the things that you can do right now, because the reality is we don't really know what's coming, and this is a tough time for us all to be in. So I think focusing on what you can do, and the other thing I'm hearing a lot from students is just thinking that everyone else has everything figured out. I've been hearing that a lot. Like, why can't I seem to be doing what person X seems? Why does person X seem to have everything together and I can't seem to do it, right? And I think the reality is, like, we're all struggling right now. So I think again, like, give yourself some grace, focus on things that you enjoy doing, on the stuff that's in your control, and we don't know what's coming, so we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
if I had any advice, it kind of worked for me, is always be a little more willing to give more than you take. And somehow things just seem to work out. If you can provide value to the community, you're going to be needed, you get paid, and you don't even always need to chase an employer. Allow people to chase you once in a while. You'd be surprised what you're capable of. I want to thank all of our alums. Your stories are so inspiring, and it makes me wish I was young again. Yeah, you live, and especially for some of the seniors, you have opportunities that some of us old timers never had. And to me, that's like, it's scary, but my gosh, that's exhilarating. And I know you might not feel that yet, but you have a hell of a future ahead of you. And I want you to remember that. So thank you to the alums and to the faculty. And this is great. Yeah, it made my day. Oh, well, we're all going to clap now. You can unmute. Thanks, guys.